All right, Cobra Kai. It's finally dead. It's over. End of the series. Let's talk about it a little bit. It's not a bad show. It's not a great show either. I think there are two really big things that are wrong with this show. All right, two things that are wrong with this show. Number one is that there are no consequences for any of the actions these people do. All right. So season 6, part 2 ends with a big fight, a big melee at the karate tournament, and a kid gets stabbed. Right? He gets stabbed and he dies. It's shocking. It's a great cliffhanger, and you want to know what's going to happen next. And you know what happens next? Nothing. Nothing happens next. Everybody goes home, and the kids the teenagers are talking about what college they're going to go to, and they're figuring out what they're going to do. And Daniel is like, no more karate, no more bonsai trees, and there's just no consequences for what happened. Nobody gets charged with a crime, and just nothing happens. There's no payoff for that kid getting stabbed and for everybody getting into a big fight, right? So the karate tournament is called off. Daniel Sanders swears off karate. All the kids are worried about going to college. And then Terry Silver shows up. And he's like, I'm dying. And I need this karate tournament. I need to win. So he gives an offer that Daniel Sand can't refuse. He gives that offer to Daniel Sand and to the promoter of the tournament. And then the tournament's back on. It's like, what? How is that the catalyst for the tournament coming back on? Shouldn't that be totally up to the promoter of the fight? But no, it's up to Terry. Terry Silver has an offer they can't refuse, and they take it, and the tournament's back on. But this time it's back on in the Valley, in California, not in Spain. And so there's no repercussions for what happened. Everything goes back to normal after the second episode of part 3. Everything is back to normal. They're back in the fight, and then a bunch of other stuff happens that we'll get into. More consequences. That there's no here's another thing that there's no consequences. What happened is Kreese. Kreese was jailed. Then he broke out of jail, and then he's traveling international. He goes to Barcelona. He goes to Korea. He's traveling around like nothing's happening. Nothing's wrong. Nobody's looking for him. He's not a fugitive. And then in part 3 of season 6, he goes on an apology tour and apologizes to Johnny and to the girl, and then I won't give it away, but he redeems himself supposedly. But there's no consequences for what happened to him when he broke out of jail. Another event with no consequences. Miguel in season 3, maybe season 2, his back gets broken. He gets in a fight with Bobby, and his back is broken, and there's just no consequences for it. Except, we see him learning how to walk again, and we see him in his cast, in his wheelchair, and how he's so depressed, and then he learns to walk again. And not only does he learn to walk again, he becomes a karate champion again. No repercussions for that. You would think that he would have a limp, or he'd be paralyzed. He broke his back. He broke his back, and that plot point does come up in season 6, part 3. It comes up, so they know it's there. The writers know it's there, but there's just absolutely no repercussions for that thing for Miguel, and no real life repercussions. He should be paralyzed at worst. He should be with a limp at least. He shouldn't be Karate Kid again. All right. So that's a real problem with that show, is that there's no repercussions for any of the actions that they do, and it's a real shame, especially with the karate tournament, because that was such a cliffhanger. The kid gets stabbed after the fight, and then you want to know, well, what's going to happen, and then nothing happens. Everything goes back to normal, right? So here's another problem with the show, is that it cannot escape the Karate Kid. It has to remind us again and again and again and again, hey, we're rivals. Hey, remember the Karate Kid? Hey, remember Karate Kid Part 2? Here's Kumiko. Here's Chosen. Hey, here's Karate Kid Part 3. Here's Terry Silver. Here's Elizabeth Shue, or whoever the girlfriend was. That he meets her up on Facebook. He looks her up on Facebook or whatever. It's just silly. You got whole scenes that are replicated and dialogue that's replicated from the movies. The show just cannot be its own show, and this is a big problem in Part 3 of Season 6. So in Part 3, it turns out that the winner of the tournament is going to be determined by two senseis fighting, and this is going to be Johnny and another guy, right? The other guy's sensei, the other team sensei, right? And so now Johnny has to be trained by Daniel-san, which doesn't make any sense in the first place because they're going to fight like the next day. So how do they have time to do this training montage? It doesn't make any sense. But Daniel-san is training him the way Miyagi trained. Daniel-san is training Johnny the way that Miyagi trained him. They even have the same song. You know, you're the best around. Never gonna, whatever, keep you down. You know, same song. Same thing. There was even a point where I thought, you know, they're in the fight and Johnny's losing. And Johnny gives him a look. And I really thought Johnny would be doing the crane kick. And thank goodness he didn't. Thank goodness he didn't. So we have this, flip-flop of their enemies, and now they're training, and Daniel-san's Miyagi, and now Johnny is Daniel-san. They just can't get away from the show. Earlier before that, Daniel had a vision. He had a vision in his head, a picture in his head, a picture of this. This is what makes Karate Kid possible. Miyagi. He has a vision of Miyagi, and they do a CGI Miyagi, or however they did it. Whether they had somebody there in a suit and then superimposed in post-production Miyagi's face and all that on him. They had a Miyagi, and they shouldn't have done that. And what they had was Daniel-san has this vision of skeleton smoke monsters. You know, if you remember in Part 1 where Johnny and the gang are dressed up like skeletons and they're fighting Daniel-san, and then Miyagi goes in and rescues him. And he has a vision of that, of those skeletons fighting, and then Miyagi coming in there to rescue him, and then Miyagi talks to him and it's like, everything be okay, Daniel, or whatever he says. Doesn't matter what he says, because he shouldn't be there. He shouldn't be there. That is one thing they should not have done, is have Miyagi, CGI Miyagi, or AI Miyagi, he shouldn't have been there. You know, he's all over the show. He's all over the show. They have this plot point where they go to Barcelona and they got this mystery box from Mr. Miyagi, and they're like, well, what's in the box? What happened to the box? Mr. Miyagi fought in the tournament? Oh, so Miyagi is all over the show. We really didn't need this AI CG Miyagi. And this is the crux of the show. The point of the show, the one thing about the show that makes it so awful is it cannot be its own thing. It has to be with a Karate Kid. And I'm going to show you a clip here of the worst aspect of this thing. And this is when Daniel-san and Johnny fight for the first time in Season 2, right? And here he comes, he's going to kick in the door, boom, right? And they're fighting, and it's great. We haven't seen them fight before. It's fighting. It's like 1984, right? It's like the tournament. They're fighting for the first time. It's just like the tournament. Let's see what is that? What? No, go back to the fight. Back, yeah, all right. Yeah. No, back to the fight. Yeah, there we go. We're present. No, we've seen this. No, yeah, there we go. And you see, this is stupid. Apparently the producers or director or whatever thinks we, the audience, are stupid. Yes, they're fighting. Yes, it's a callback to this tournament fight. We don't need the fight with Johnny and Daniel interspliced with this footage from the first movie, because we know what's happening. Just show us the fight. Just show us the fight. Show us the fight. Show us the show. Show us these guys in the modern age, in our years, 40 years later, doing their own thing without having to anchor it so much in the original. It's not just that they have a few references, it's that every single thing is a reference. and it just cannot be its own show. It can't be its own show. It cannot escape. It can't escape itself. And I'm not going to say it's a bad show. Like I said, it's not a bad show. But the way it ended was, I thought it was disappointing. I won't give it away if you haven't seen it. I just thought it was just a total, they show Miyagi, and then they just basically smack his memory in the face. Or actually they smack his memory down on the table. More like it. Daniel San's having this moment. He's having this moment. It's Miyagi. He knows. He's remembering this was Miyagi. And then just Johnny comes in and basically does a fart joke. And just, what was the point of having this tender moment? And then Johnny just basically farting all over Miyagi's memory. So it's not a bad show. It's not a terrible show. I just wish it could have been more of its own thing. And I wish that, part 3 just was, I thought it was really bad. There should have been some consequences for that, for the fight. Somebody should have gotten in trouble, or I don't know what they could have done. But to just have everything go back to normal after one episode, you have an episode of hand wringing. Well, what are we going to do? No more karate. And then the fight's back on. It just ruins the tension from the fight and the guy and the kid's death, and it just makes it meaningless. It makes it meaningless. So anyway, that's my review of Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai is now dead because the show is over. Of course, you can watch it anytime you want, so maybe Cobra Kai lives.